Okay, there we go, man. Two non-critics, man. We have another show going on here, man. Uh, two non-critics. We're two lifelong friends and film buffs with very different tastes coming together to talk about movies. I am non-critic Dustin, and joining us from 6 hours in the past in Hawaii is
Non-critic Will. Hey, man.
non-critic Will, man. And tonight I'm very excited. We're gonna talk about American Movie. It's a cult classic. People who enjoy independent film know about this film, and it has sort of like this. It's sort of the I don't want to say Holy Grail because people say that all the time, but it's sort of the Bible for independent filmmakers on what not to do, kind of. And it's easily probably my favorite documentary ever. I suggested it to Non-Critic Will because he doesn't watch a lot of documentaries, and I think that documentaries can be some of the most rewarding films to watch. And I wanted to introduce him to my favorite one. So that's what we're talking about. And so he just freshly watched it. What did you think?
Well, what I thought about, I was going to say the movie, but the documentary. It was very, very interesting, very knowledgeable. I don't know if I want to. You can't say educational, but it was more inspiring for me because of the fact that this was a person. The guy's name Mark. What's his last name?
Borchardt.
Mark Borchardt. He was just quote unquote a regular guy. Going through some struggles. He didn't have a job. He was living with his parents at the time.
Well, he has a job. He has two jobs. They just don't really do anything for him. They're like part time. He works in the cemetery, and he's also has a
job. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I said he doesn't have a job. But yeah, he has little part-time jobs. He's still living with his parents. His girlfriend, who's just a piece of work, say it in a nice way, she is threatening to leave him and take their 3 children that they have together. So he's going through a lot of stress with everything with his life, with his personal issues, but he's still trying to be able to become a filmmaker, what he always wanted to do. Specifically making this movie that he started on called Northwestern. I believe he started it in 1990.
Northwestern? I think it was 90 or 91, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it was 90 or 91. He started it but never finished it just because he didn't have the finances, the people, or whatnot. So I know I'm kind of giving a synopsis to it because even though you asked me what I thought about it, I'm trying to give you what I think about it with giving a synopsis so people understand.
Context. Yeah.
People understand why I liked it or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But so he started going on to another project called The Coven. It's supposed to be a horror film. Now, the reason why it's so inspiring for me is because even though the struggles he had, and I forgot to mention he's a borderline alcoholic too. Forgot to mention that.
Not borderline, he is full-fledged alcoholic.
But even throughout his struggles, he still was a very hard worker when it came to filmmaking. He did his best to get the right shot, the right angle, try to get the right people to fill the roles that he has, regardless of dealing with all his bullshit, his issues that he has. Now, he wanted his uncle, his Uncle Bill, 82 years old, he's getting senile, but he has, I think they said $300,000 in his bank account?
It was like 800 and something, like, it was like $845,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, So, so there, he's trying to ask his uncle if his uncle can help, finance or give him the money to do the film, to make the film, and his uncle finally agrees to it, and they go about making the, well, not his uncle, I mean, but Mark goes about making the film with people that he knows, his neighbors, friends, and specifically his best friend Mike, who is definitely definitely is an alcoholic, but because what was it? One of the things he always says, like, yeah, I met someone that like drank vodka with me, man, and every time he came over, like we drank vodka, and I always had vodka for us to drink because we like to drink vodka. I was just like, nice. But ever since then, Mike, his best friend, has started going to Alcoholics Anonymous, but through that he developed a new habit for gambling.
Mm-hmm.
So, and his sponsor from Alcoholics Anonymous will take him to gamble. So that was just great. But
So you identify with Mark, given all the turmoil he's got going on. You still identify.
yes, because he's still trying to fulfill his dream, regardless of the situation. I mean, there was even a point where I believe it was like at Thanksgiving where he got so pissed and he snapped on his family, friends, and everybody. And his new girlfriend left him for a little bit, but they got back together, so that was good. But I don't know if we can call this well, it's a documentary, but I don't know if I can call it a spoiler if I give the ending. Okay, well, pretty much, he is able to finish the production of The Coven, and it's at one of the local theaters. So his friends, his family, they're all happy that it was finished, it was completed, and his Uncle Bill, he's having a heart-to-heart talk with his Uncle Bill, and Uncle Bill ends up dying sometime recently after the completion of The Coven. But in Uncle Bill's will, he leaves Mark $50,000 to finance Northwestern, the first film that he always wanted to do and complete. So, but I mean, it's pretty much showing, just like I said in the beginning, a regular guy, quote unquote, that is going through a struggle in his life, going through struggles in his life, and is trying to do what he can still to fulfill his dream. There was one part in the documentary that I definitely caught eye to was they were watching like Super Bowl 31, and he was drinking beers or whatnot. I believe he was intoxicated at the moment, and he was saying, like, he was pointing at the TV. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to be like no fucking guy over there that does 40 hours a week, just living an average life. Fuck him. Fuck that guy. I don't like that fucking guy." And I'm just like, whoa, what the fuck? He never wants to be the average Joe that is just going to go day to day and 9 to 5, 40-hour week, living paycheck to paycheck. He wants to do something with his life. He wants to reach his dream. He wants to succeed. He wants to go beyond and become known, become inspiring. So I definitely saw that because you can just really see his determination and his passion at that moment when he was just like, fuck that 40-hour job, fuck that shit. That's never going to be me. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's why most people, you can connect with this movie on a lot of levels. For one thing, it's hilarious. I know I've seen some people say, how is this a comedy? It's a documentary. It's real life. Yeah, it's real life. But these people in this documentary are better than any characters you'll ever see in anything. They are so, they're down to earth and normal, but in an eccentric way. You know what I mean? Everyone in the film is so interesting. Even Mike Schank, who he's a man of few words. When he speaks, it's either hilarious or at least it makes you chuckle. And he doesn't always intend on that, but it happens anyway. Like I always laugh when Mike he's in one of the robes for COVID, and he's like, hey, can you put my soda on the tarp because I don't want it to freeze?
Yeah.
Later, please. That's the top priority is the soda. And so you can identify from just a piece of entertainment. It's thoroughly entertaining. But then in terms of Mark's passion, his uncompromising drive to achieve this is inspiring. And it's when I say earlier that it's almost like a perfect example of what not to do as an aspiring filmmaker. I think it's a great example of the type of passion and drive and determination you should have. But it's also a document of what you can do if you let your demons get the better of you. I mean, he's definitely a slave to the bottle, man. It stops him from doing a lot of things. He's deep in debt, and like you said, he's living with his parents, and he's in a rough situation. He's trying to get out of it. He's not necessarily going about it in the most productive way, but you can't help but feel like you root for him, not only because of his passion, but he's got Mike there by his side. He's got his other friend Kenny there editing for him, doing everything he can. His mom's out there helping him all the time.
Okay.
You can tell he inspires the people around him, and it's really great that when you are a creative person and you have creative endeavors that you take on, to see someone that determined who inspires others around him. But I do have to say there are moments when he gets especially depressed or things get really dark for him that I identify with him then too, and it's almost scary. I think when you see those moments when he's freaking out during the Super Bowl, and you're just like, that could easily be me sitting there getting drunk and saying, I'm not going to be one of those factory workers, man. Just who doesn't want to? Who just wants to be average? I want to be better than that, man. I don't understand it. And what he's saying is perfectly fine, but you see it like he's almost breaking down. Mm-hmm. Everything's getting to him, and it's really, really, really emotionally shattering, I think. Oh man, it's a good movie. I wanted to read off some of my favorite lines from the movie because it's easily the most quotable movie I've ever seen. Like everything that comes out of Mark's mouth is gold. Like he does not answer a question. He doesn't say yes or no. He gives you a philosophy, or he gives you a technical answer. Like the only line I wrote down, I've got right here because so many of them are so good. When he finally says, we're going to go back and finish COVID. He calls it COVID. And there's a hilarious scene where they're trying to explain to him that it's pronounced coven. He's like, nah, man, coven, that sounds like oven, man. That's not going to work. So he keeps calling it COVID. And I agree with him. Coven sounds better. But, so this is the only line I could think to write down because I think it's so perfect. Is they ask him, so Mark, what's Coven? Now, somebody asks you a question of what the film you're working on is, chances are you're going to go right to what the movie's about. Not Mark. Yeah. This is what Mark says. Without missing a beat. He almost doesn't even let the guy finish his question. He goes, hey Mark, what's Coven? Coven is a 35-minute direct-to-market thriller film shot on 16mm black and white reversal. And that's the first thing he says. And then he goes into it's about an alcoholic, man. He doesn't say it's about an alcoholic man, a man who is an alcoholic. It's about an alcoholic, man. He goes through the AA meeting, inspired from his last friend. He just gets so, it's in his head, and he has to get it out there with people. It's amazing. What else about the documentary struck you besides Mark and his passion? Anybody in his family or friends, or like you're not really used to documentaries. Was this kind of what you expected a documentary would be like?
I mean, I guess, I mean, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but the other one that really strikes me is his best friend Mike, just because Mike is interesting. he's just an interesting person altogether. But the fact that he, regardless of his addictions or whatnot, he's still doing everything he can to be there for his best friend. Um, and on top of the fact that he's like, yeah, I've been drinking, buddy, man. I'm gonna drink vodka. Yeah, man. Like, he's cool.
I used to like to party real hard, but nobody wanted to party with me, so I was just hanging out by myself partying. Then Mark came along and got excited because he brought a bottle of vodka, and I like to drink vodka, so he'd come around and drink vodka.
And I think I like the support that he got from his mother. Like, even though his mother at times seemed like a nag to him, she was there. She was always there to support. I mean, there's even a part where she's holding the camera and he's like crouched down by the sink, the underneath the sink to do some type of scene where he's screaming and he like dashes out of the way of the camera, and she's like, "You didn't do it right, and you got to go back." It's like, "Mom, really?"
He's trying to get a straight answer out of her about what the frame looks like. And say, "Oh, now you moved out of frame." And he's like, "We're burning all this film now." Oh, now you're too high up. His mom's pretty golden too. Like, my favorite line from her is, Mark is on the phone and he's talking to Mike about his sponsor, and he goes, "Wait, your sponsor goes to Gamblers Anonymous for scratch-offs, man?" And his mom says, "Well, maybe he buys the $5 ones."
What the hell?
Like, it's, I don't know, man. So what do you think of Uncle Bill?
Uncle Bill, who? Uncle Bill, he's a man he's a man that just doesn't really have to give many words to get his point across. Even when Mark wanted him to do a part in in his movie, Mark had him doing up to like 30. I think he reached like 31 takes, and it was just a simple what was it? Jesus answered or something he said.
It's all right. It's okay. There's something to live for. Jesus told me so.
Yeah, and he's like, it's all right. It's okay. What? Take 6. It's all right. It's okay. Jesus, Jesus, it's something to live for. I'm like, what the hell? And then after like the 31st take, he's like, I'm done with this shit.
This and shits is for birds.
Oh yeah, oh man, one of the classic lines, "Shit for birds." Wow. But even though with his uncle getting irritated or whatnot, his uncle still was a big help in what Mark was going through. Not just financially. Yeah, that was a big part, the finances, but he still did support him, even while going senile. He supported him until his death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I definitely love Uncle Bill. I was just saying, I definitely love Uncle Bill for that.
I was gonna say, after all the times I saw it, I think I was rewatching it again today. I watched it earlier in the week, and then I watched it again today because you can seriously watch this movie over and over. Uncle Bill became my favorite person in the film because I mean, he's a perfect example of someone who doesn't really. He'll help you, but he's going to give you his opinion on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'll do it begrudgingly, but he'll help you. And it really struck me that Mark's brother, I mean not Mark's brother, Mark's dad, Bill's younger brother, was saying that Bill used to be a scholar. I guess I don't know. They didn't really go too far into it, but he said how Mark he always really looked up to Bill he was the smart one. He went to school. He knew the answers for everything. He knew how to spell things. And but it was just I really started to appreciate Bill in a way I hadn't before because of how honest he is. But he's still gonna help him out. You can like you said, he's going a little senile, but there's still a couple of those sparks of that intelligence in there, like on his birth when they go out to eat for his birthday.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay, Uncle Bill, how's it feel to be 83 or however old he turned?" He always says before he says everything, and then he looks directly dead in the camera, and he's like, "It's a nice day if it doesn't rain." Just smile. it's his birthday. It's a nice day if it doesn't rain. And the song that he wrote for his wife who died, just like sort of dark and weird it was. Like, "Oh, you're in heaven now, and I miss you since you died, since you wanted to die." So I mean, it's everything. Everyone in this movie, it's just spits out gold. I mean, they have some interviews with Mark's brothers. They are just like flat out. They don't believe in him at all. Like they think that they're impressed by his passion, but they're like, never gonna happen.
Yeah.
What does one brother say? He's like, I know he wants to grow up and be a filmmaker, but I always thought he'd grow up to be like a stalker or a serial killer.
Thanks, bro.
It's just good. Just all these people who support him and believe in him, and then his brother's like, nope, you're gonna go out and kill someone. I think.
I'm gonna see you on the sex offenders list.
I'm Mark Borchardt. I'm a convicted sex offender. But it's also kind of a little depressing for me to watch it because when I first saw it about 5 years ago, I started looking up stuff about Mark, and he hasn't done a whole lot since this movie. Like he still hasn't finished Northwestern. He's been in production of a movie called Scare Me for almost 10 years, and he shows up in documentaries. He does interviews a lot. He shows up sometimes as an actor in thing. There's just a movie out that went straight to DVD recently. Something like The Hagstone's Grave, some weird title like that.
Yeah.
So he pops up every now and then, but when the movie's over, you're just thrilled for him. You're like, he finished Coven, and he's gonna make Northwestern, and that's gonna be his masterpiece, and yet he still hasn't done it.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie came out in '99. Coven, but it was shot over 2 years, from like '95 to '97, I think it was. And so for almost 20 years now, he still hasn't gotten another film done. And it makes me wonder, like, what obstacles he's come across. He showed up in another documentary called Horror Business, and he's in it for a very short time, and they're on the set of Scare Me. Like I said, that documentary came out almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you look on his IMDb page, it says in production still, or pre-production, or something. And I wonder, they should do another, like a sequel to American Movie, where it's like, what's going on now, Mark? Why no Northwestern? Why none of that? And what do you think of Mark's films? What they showed of what little they showed of his movies? Would you be interested in watching them? Be honest.
Be honest, it needs some work. From the little bits and pieces I saw, to be honest, it needs some work. You can tell that it's homemade, and if you're trying to make a good feature film, it needs to not look homemade. I mean, some some movies it works for, like for instance, the Blair Witch Project, that worked.
Like a found footage movie.
Yeah. Um, uh, Cloverfield, it was all done just through the view of a camera, the whole thing. Those work. So even if you get it to that level, that would be good. But also he was doing like a silent film. Well, Northwestern was supposed to be like a silent film, right? Didn't he say that? Or
He made a silent film, which was he made a bunch of like short horror films when he was a kid, and when he was a teenager, I mean, and those were silent, I believe. But I don't think Northwestern is intended to be silent. I think all
okay.
the footage is silent because he hasn't gone back and redone the audio yet.
I
Like,
mean, right now because because I've seen American Movie, I would watch his film just to see where his mindset was or whatnot. But like, if you never uh, suggested this documentary for me to watch, I probably wouldn't watch it. Like his film, I probably wouldn't watch
like
it.
if I had a copy of COVID and was like, watch this movie, you'd probably
Well,
be like, Jesus Christ.
if you told me to watch it for this, then I have no choice. I will watch it. But if you just, oh, if you have some spare time watching, I'll be like,
That's part of the reason I wanted to do this show. I was sick of texting you. If you have free time, watch this, and then you never watch them. So now we have a reason for you to watch the movie I suggest to you. That's a joke, by the way. Something else that really hit me is because I've been thinking a lot about the different cultures within America,
yeah,
and because you think we're one country, we're one culture, and really we're not. Like I was listening to the Nerdist podcast today. It was an older episode. The Wachowskis were on,
yeah,
and they were talking about. Chris Hardwick said how America is basically one land made up of little countries. Like, and I think you can definitely see that when you watch American movie. The Northwest is not the same
yeah,
as the Northeast. Where you're from, where I live. They're almost completely different places.
yeah,
There's a lot of areas around here that are run down and shitty and stuff, but I've been to the Northwest. Most of it looks like that. No offense to anyone in the Northwest. This movie is a very accurate portrayal of the Northwest, or at least that area of Wisconsin, I guess. And
and
it's so interesting to see that. What?
and also actually what we were just talking about too, as far as watching his film, um, on the brighter side, I I think I would give it a chance possibly because of the fact that everybody has to start somewhere. So yeah, it does. It looks, of course, first encounter, it's just a homemade movie, but you never know with the drive, the passion, the desire that he has, and um, if that passion is deep enough to touch others, then it becomes something greater. So everybody starts off small. Everybody starts off small, and you just have to work your way up. So even giving him a chance could just be another step up. So
Yeah, totally. I
I,
mean, if you watch, go ahead.
I say, well, just pretty much, I would give it a chance, possibly. So
If you watch Steven Spielberg's first movie, Duel, it's a good movie and it's very well made, but it's still pretty rough. I mean, of course he'd made short films as a kid and everything, so he built up to make Duel. And but I mean, if you look at Duel and then you look at say um, Raiders of the Lost Ark or even Jaws, I mean, like
mhm.
Jaws is a massively
Yeah,
better film than Duel. I mean, not the content, like they're totally different movies, but as a filmmaker, he grew exponentially because you gain experience with each film.
mm.
And that's why part of me is depressed that he hasn't really made anything since then. And by the way, Coven is on YouTube, the full movie. So, if you're interested.
I will give it a watch.
Nice. It's not that bad. I mean, it's rough and it's weird, but it's one of those movies where I was going to say kind of like David Lynch, where it's rough and it's weird, but that helps the movie, actually.
Yeah.
And that's something I've really come to appreciate more and more, is even if your movie looks like shit, if it works for the overall atmosphere and tone of the movie, I'm totally cool with it, as long as a whole, the movie works. And that's why, I always bust on like guys like Zack Snyder and Michael Bay and stuff like that. It's because their films are gorgeous, but the content is crap. And just having a good-looking movie doesn't result in an enjoyable experience for myself. And so that's why, guys like Mark Borchardt, even though his movie looks like shit, it works for that movie. And I just wish, it's sad to say, but I wish more films did that. Not that more films look like shit, but more films, the content was enhanced by the look of the film. And that's supposed to be how it's done. But that's okay. And just to touch on the question I had earlier, before I asked you to watch this, I said, if you watch documentaries, and I think you said the last documentary you watched was like in high school. What were your perceptions of what a documentary was before coming into it?
Well, my perceptions of documentary was pretty much just a story of how, well, not a story per se, but just how this person or these group of people started from wherever they were, started from the bottom and just rose to the top. Whether they rose to the top, with fame, fortune, or just rose to the top with their own personal goals in mind. I always just documentaries were this is how this came to be, or this person went from point A to point B. The tools that they used, the things that inspired them, the people that supported them, the people that hated them. So that's always what I thought documentaries, what I knew documentaries were. But documentary is not always about people. It's about things. It's about space. It's about anything. It's just how this came to be, how we got from point A to point B. So, yeah.
Because when you told me that, my image of what you thought documentaries were pieces of education, like a lecture with images. Like in school, when you watch a science documentary, it's a bunch of images with a scientist talking over it. Or you watch like the History Channel, there's some experts talking about things, there's some war footage, and there's a narrator. That's what a documentary is. And that is a form of documentary, of course. It's a document of something. But the kinds of documentaries I prefer, instead of like profiles, like what you were discussing, like something like Behind the Music or E True Hollywood Story, things like that, where you're like, I could easily see this movie being an E True Hollywood Story. Cut out the narrative and put in a narrator and say, Mark Borchardt is an aspiring filmmaker. Have a shitty narrator like that, and it could turn into that easily. But by taking that out and letting the character, they are characters, not fictional, they're real people, but they all have very strong characteristics, so they're characters. Let them speak for themselves. Let them tell the story. And then you just completely become engrossed in it. And that's why I think documentaries can quite often be more rewarding than, say, just a standard film. You think you'll watch more documentaries after watching this? Because there's a lot that are like this. Not as funny as this, but
I would. I can see myself in it because there's more room to relate to the individual or group of people or whatnot. I mean, like I said, like with movies, I try to find how can I relate to the main character? You know, what do I feel that I would do in that situation? But for documentaries, this is real. It's not made up. It's not a character. This is a real person that went through some struggles to get where they are today. You know, that had to make sacrifices to continue forth, and maybe didn't even achieve some of their goals, but set new ones. Because failure. You fail, you miss a goal, you still learn something. You're still learning regardless, and in the end, you still may succeed. You still may succeed in some aspect. So this is more something you can relate to just as a person, as an individual. So. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, now that you've seen this, I mean, earlier in our first couple of episodes, I wanted Will to watch a documentary called Dungeon Masters,
Oh yeah.
and he didn't want to do it. And that's okay because I thought of something else instead. Can't remember. Oh, we talked about Odd Thomas instead. And so maybe sometime down the road we'll talk about Dungeon Masters because it's more like American movie. It's you follow these people around and you relate to their stories, just like you said.
Yeah.
Someday. Anyway, I think we said pretty much everything there is to say about it. American movie is fantastic. Tomorrow, why did I say it like that? Tomorrow, we're going to be Canadian all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Missouri, tomorrow, we're going to talk about Will's Suggestion, which was Across the Hall from 2009. And the film that we talked about tonight is, every week we do two shows, one Friday, one Saturday. Friday is usually my pick, Saturday is usually Will's pick. The next two Fridays are going to continue a theme that we introduced with this episode. And the theme is the passion of film. Today we talked about American Movie, a documentary of the passion of film. Then we're going to, next week, I would like to talk about a film, which is actually a web series like I've cut together into a film. It counts. Called Kick-Assia, which is a web series that Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, wrote and directed. And that is sort of, to me, that is a selection of what the Mark Borchardt style of passion could lead into if you follow through on it. And then after that, I want to talk about these two silent films. They're both less than an hour long. That's why I want to do two of them at once. And just to talk about, when film was new and that passion was there to explore all its possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully people, if you like this, you'll stick around for those next two and for tomorrow and for the Will's next two and everyone after that. Anyway.
Everyone after that.
But until then, I guess we should say goodbye. Again, from upstate New York, I'm non-critic Dustin, and you are, sir?
From Hawaii, non-critic Will.
And I was going to think of a quote from American Movie to end this, but I can't think of one, so I guess we'll just see you later, man.